Identifying site owners. Site owners are responsible for content and membership of a site or site collection. In a traditional top-down structure, IT manages all sites, and so the IT department is the sole owner. That approach works well in a small deployment, but it does not scale to large deployments. Distributed ownership delegates routine administrative tasks. SharePoint supports a distributed ownership model when routine administrative tasks are delegated to individuals who have direct relationship with the content of their sites. They know what content is in the site. They know best how to administer that content. IT has less direct involvement in administering the individual sites and provides more general support and training. Site owner is a new role for most organizations, so most departments need help identifying who that individual should be. Some of the things to look for in a site owner: interested in technology, understand communication needs of the department, a willingness to learn, ability to organize information, and knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And above all, must be helpful and patient with others, because this is going to be the first line of support that users will go to. If they have any issues, they should be going to their site owners instead of going to the IT department. Once you find someone who might be a good site owner for a department, speak with your manager and project stakeholders to determine whether the person is interested and available to administer SharePoint for the department. And depending on the size of the department, you may wind up having more than one site steward or one site owner. Tasks for site owners. The amount of responsibility that you assign to an owner is somewhat flexible, but they are usually responsible for the following tasks: maintain department homepage, grant access to department content, create any new lists and libraries that are requested by the users, create new project sites within the department, help department members learn SharePoint, and request new features from IT. Site owners should be stakeholders during site development. If you can identify them at that stage, it's going to make your life a lot easier because they're going to be part of the building process. If not, develop basic department sites and work with the site owner to refine them during review and testing. Okay, assigning ownership. How you assign ownership depends on whether you organize sites within a web application as a single site collection or as multiple site collections. Single site collection model. Set site owners by creating a unique owners SharePoint group for the site. Multiple site collection model. Set site owners using the site collection administrative account. Site collection administrators have full control of all sites within the site collection, and they will be the ones that will receive the alerts from SharePoint when users request access to a resource. Usage quotas are exceeded or sites are no longer in use, they will be the ones to get that information. So you want to make sure it's somebody that's going to be right on top of things. Because if a site locks and users are not able to access it because the quota is met, that could be a problem. Members of the owner SharePoint group have full control of the current site and sub-sites that inherit that permission. They do not receive administrative alerts. Only at the site collection level do they receive administrative alerts. In other words, site collection administrators have more authority and more responsibility than members of the owner SharePoint group. So let's go ahead and take a look at the site owner and the site collection role. Browse to your site. Go to Site Actions, Site Permissions. From here you will see the different groups that are available. If you want to see who has site collection permissions, click on Site Collection Administrators, and you'll be able to see who has those permissions. Remember, if you assign a site owner at a site collection level, they're going to have full rights across everything within this site collection, all sites and subsites, regardless if they break inheritance or not. The homeowners group, this is the one that has full control. With full control, will have permissions to this site and any subsites below it. If inheritance is broken, those permissions can be removed. So if you need your site owners to have full control across the board, you'll want to put it at the site collection level. A lot of businesses will do it in stages. You'll have site owners with full control that'll vary throughout the different sites. So you can have site owners on the HR site. You can have different site owners on the IT department site. But then you would have a higher level, a site collection administrator at the top level, and that would be the second level of support. So your users would go to your site owners for that department site or for that site. If the site owner can't resolve the issue or do what needs to be done or the configuration, whatever the case may be, then they would take it to the next level to the site collection administrator. Review and testing is a key part of the rollout phase. Once the initial top level and department sites exist, you should review them with the stakeholders to make sure they meet the business requirements stated in the project plan. The specific areas to review are navigation. Can users navigate up and down the site hierarchy by using the quick launch, top link bar, and breadcrumb features easily? Search. Does the search feature locate documents and user information? Security. Are department security settings and site owners correct? This is key. You certainly don't want users to be able to access content that they don't need access to. Ease of use. Are basic features such as upload, download, search, navigation, task lists, calendars, and Office integration intuitive? And completeness. Are business needs or features missing? If they are, that will need to be addressed. Gather feedback from stakeholders, address their issues, and hold a second review for sign-off purposes. Once the stakeholders agree that the sites meet their general needs, you can proceed with user testing. During testing, select target users who are willing to provide feedback and make sure it's a very diverse group, and ask them to perform tasks described by the business needs in your project plan. In a large deployment, it may be best to do this on a department-by-department basis, or at least get a team that pulls from a variety of different backgrounds and departments. Watch for the following issues. Client-side issues. Is automatic logon working on all clients? Do users receive unnecessary security warnings? You don't want them to get prompted every time they hit a site to log in and enter their credentials. Security. Can users see what they need, but not what they shouldn't? Always a big issue. Usability. Are users comfortable with the sites, or do they require help using them? If they're having issues, you will want to address this right away. Errors. Are unexpected errors occurring on the client server? If they are, they need to be addressed immediately. During testing, you must be available to answer user questions and to take notes on any issues they encounter. Better to sort out the problems with a small audience rather than the entire company. You'll also need to monitor the event logs and the SharePoint logs on the server to make sure all the services are functioning as they should be. Using project sites. SharePoint is a site where people collaborate on the testing and rollout of SharePoint. An example of that is a project site. Project sites are sub-sites that serve a specific time-limited purpose. Once the project is over, the site is either archived or removed from the site collection. Their membership usually spans multiple departments. The project site has a beginning, middle, and end, and the project site collects the key documents that drive decisions, capture discussion and feedback, and can track progress over the life of the project. The project site is usually going to be located in the department that owns the project. After the project is complete, the administrator can either move the project site out of the main navigation department site or archive and remove it from SharePoint. Another option, if you really like the layout of this and you have multiple projects that come through regularly, you might save it as a template for future use. Train employees. SharePoint training is an important part of any rollout. SharePoint is easy to use, but it has many aspects that are not obvious or intuitive, particularly among the Office integration features. You can approach SharePoint training in three main ways. Off-site classes and seminars. Off-site classes are available from various vendors, but it is impractical to provide that type of training for most employees depending on the budget that you have available. Another option is on-site, hands-on training. If you choose to offer employees hands-on training, plan the following half-day classes: Introduction to SharePoint, Advanced SharePoint, And then SharePoint specific for site owners, because they're going to have more responsibility than the average user. On-site classes make it easier to achieve full coverage and allow you to train employees on the actual SharePoint site that they will use. Another option is self-service online training. There are a lot of resources out there for additional training online. Online training has the advantage of low cost, but it often gets ignored by everyone. All of these options are good options. It just depends on what your goals are, the time that can be allotted for this, and your budget. SharePoint includes online help, and you can add a link to the home page on the top link bar to those resources so that all your users have that easily available. There is some additional training that you can install in SharePoint. It's installed as a feature. And you can also visit Microsoft's SharePoint site for hands-on labs and additional training materials, and the link is provided here. There are resources available at this site for all levels, whether it be on the developer side, the user side, site owner, or administrators. Okay, so let's go and review some of the key components of our site. Browse to your SharePoint site, and once you've finished setting up the top level and department sites, as described in your project plan, you can call a meeting to review the work. Schedule a meeting room with a projector, and when the day comes, perform the following steps. Before the review, upload a test document that contains known words to help demonstrate search during the review. In addition, upload some company forms to the document site. At the review, hand out copies of the project plan for stakeholders so they have something to reference. Log on using the account that has the appropriate permissions. Navigate to the top-level home page, which is the root of your site collection, the top-level site within the site collection, and demonstrate some basic components, because a lot of people have not, or a lot of your business users may not have seen SharePoint before, so you want to give them an overview of what to expect and how it performs. Point out the name in the upper left corner, Home, and it's going to give you a brief description of what that is. Notice that it recognizes the user. I'm logged in as the administrator, so it's showing system account. Otherwise, it would show your account information. Your name would be right here. Click on the tabs to demonstrate how you can navigate from one site to the other, and how you can get back easily by using the Navigate Up button at the very top. Click on the Quick Launch links on the left-hand side to show how easy it is to browse around and to view different components within SharePoint. And you can always hit the back button to go back. And then in Search, search for a document to demonstrate how search functions. Notice how it pulls in anything that has SharePoint associated with it. Announcements, getting started with SharePoint Foundation, one of the documents that's loaded into the document library. You can set it up so that they can get alerts on specific items. RSS feeds. Allows you to search this location for later versions. And then take them back to the home page and demonstrate how you can have sites set up differently. This is the HR home site. Notice it looks completely different than the intranet site, the root of the site collection. And let's go back to the home page. You want to demonstrate any custom features that you have enabled on the home page or on any of the pages, depending on what the plan was designed for. Navigate to the document library. You'll notice that there's a document icon there. I'm going to not minimize, but restore this down to a previous size, and I can click and drag this document over to my desktop. So that way I can work on it, and then I can always bring it back. I can choose to add a document by browsing, just like I would for anything else, and then choosing what it is that I would like to upload. I can click the down arrow and I can check out the document, have alerts set up, send it to an email link to where if I click this, it's going to open your Outlook window or whatever email carrier that you're using, and it would provide the link in there for you. Create a document workspace directly from this document if I want to collaborate with other users to make modifications for it, or I can choose to download, manage the permissions, or delete it from the library. Let's go ahead and maximize this again. If I click the down arrow under the account, which would be your name or the account that you're logged in under, you can choose sign in as a different user, sign out, personalize this page. If you choose to personalize this page, you're personalizing it for you. It's only going to be visible to you. Sign in as a different user, or my settings, where you can set up your alerts and so on. Once you've done the demo, review any other features that address the business needs from the project plan. Collect feedback and schedule a follow-up for sign-off. One thing you'll notice from this review is that the appearance of the document site is different from that of the home page. And you want to point this out so they can see how they can modify the sites as needed to meet the needs of the department. But you may have a business that requires everything to follow the branding. They will not allow you to change the themes and so on. So you want to make sure that you're conforming to the policies of your company. Let's go back to the home page. To begin the testing phase, there are some things that you might want to do. Compile a list of your testers and develop a testing schedule. Within your site collection, create a site for testing feedback. Let's go ahead and do that. To create a site, in here we're going to go to Site Actions, New Site. We're going to call this Feedback. Oh, actually we're going to call it SharePoint Rollout. The description is testing and feedback for the SharePoint deployment. And we must give it a URL because it is a site. We're going to call it SP 2010. We're going to choose a basic team site. We'll use the same permissions as the parent. And do we want to display this on the quick launch? Yes. So we do want it to be on that left panel. Display it on the top link bar of the parent site? Yes. So when you go to the parent site, it's going to have a link to our rollout site. Use the top link bar from the parent site. The default is no. We're going to go ahead and click yes. So that way we can easily toggle back and forth to the parent site from either site. Click Create. So let's go ahead and make some changes. We do get some default items that we can utilize without having to create new ones. For instance, the first thing we want to do is we want to change the discussion for team discussion to be feedback. So we're going to click on team discussion. You'll notice once we do, if you have the permissions, if you're a site owner or if you have contribute permissions and so on, you'll be able to see some different items on the ribbon. We're going to click List, and then all the way to the far right you will see List Settings. This is where you come in and modify all the different items, the configuration of this list. The first thing we're going to do is change the title. So under General Settings, we're going to click Title, Description, and Navigation, and we're going to change it to Feedback. And give it a description. Do we want this to be displayed on the quick launch, that is the bar on the left-hand side? We want it to, so we're going to leave the default of yes and click Save. So let's go look at our site now. If we click SharePoint Rollout, to get out of the discussion board settings. We now have feedback on the left-hand side. We also want to change the announcements web part with the feedback web part. So right when you hit this site, you'll see the feedback right away without having to come over here to the left if you choose to. So from here, we're going to choose Site Actions, Edit Page. Go ahead and delete the text, Welcome to your site, and click Insert on the ribbon bar, or the Insert tab on the ribbon, and choose Web Part. It's going to give you a list of all the web parts that you have already enabled on this site initially when you first hit the site. Notice there's shared documents, site assets. These are things that are already created. We're not creating a new discussion. We're just applying a web part that's going to include the information to a list that already exists. So we're going to select Feedback and click Add. Notice that it's below Shared Documents, so we're going to click on it and simply just drag it up to the top. Let's see if it's kind of temperamental. Sometimes it's easier to go from top to bottom, so if we click Shared Documents and move it down, that makes it a little bit easier. And now we have Feedback at the top and Shared Documents. We don't really need this picture on the right panel, so we're going to delete it. And we'll get rid of some of those additional spaces. As users run into different issues when they're evaluating different things, also remember to follow up with any issues with the testers that posted to this list. When the testing period ends, thank the testers for their input and be sure to invite them to the launch party. Now that you have your project site created, let's go take a peek at it. Let's go back to Home. We click our Navigate Up folder and choose SharePoint Rollout. It's going to ask you to save your changes. We're going to say OK. And now this is what is available. It's a little bit cleaner, and you have right there at that page everything that is needed. You might choose to add a calendar to the page, so you have several options that you can choose from. Also keep in mind, if you do decide to save this if you really like the layout, you can choose to save it as a template. And to do that, Site Actions, Site Settings, under Site Actions category, you're going to see a link, Save Site as Template. If you click on that, we're going to give it a project, we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it Project Template. We really like the way this is, and we have a lot of projects that we're consistently working with, so we want to keep reusing this layout. You want to give it a file name, a name and description, because when you go to the template gallery or when you choose to use this template in the future, you want to make sure that you can identify what it is. And you can include content, but it is limited to 50 meg. So it depends on what you want to put in there. You may have content in there that includes instructions on how to plan a project and so on. That way you won't have to keep recreating it every time. For our purposes, we're not going to include content. And click OK. The operation is successfully completed, and it puts it automatically in the solution gallery. And we can click there to get to it, but we're going to click OK. And then if we go to Site Actions, Site Settings, notice under Galleries I don't see a solution gallery here because we're not at the root. We're at a sub-site. We're not at the top level site of the site collection. So from here you'll see, you can always tell because under the Site Collection Administration category, if it says go to top level site settings, then you're not at the top level. So click there and it'll take you directly there. And then we would click Solutions And you can see project template is available and ready for use. So let's test that theory. We have another project coming online. So let's create a new site. We're going to call this IT SharePoint Adoption. We're going to put that in the description also. Give it a very brief URL name. Again, I cannot emphasize enough. No spaces, and keep it limited. You don't want it to say IT SharePoint Adoption in the URL name. And if we click on the Custom tab, you'll see that we now have Project Template available for us. We'll use the same permissions as the parent, and we'll go with the default settings here and click Create. And there we go. We now have a new site created based on that project template. Now finally what we're going to do is we're going to go to the root site and we're going to add a tab at the top that'll link us to some additional resources for help. So to do that, we're going to click on our Navigate Up button and choose Home. Go to Site Actions, Site Settings, and under Look and Feel, you're going to see a category Top Link Bar. We could put it at the Quick Launch, but let's go ahead and add it to the top link bar. We're going to click New Navigation Link. Notice that it shows what we currently have. Home, HR, SharePoint Rollout, IT, SharePoint Adoption. We can certainly change the order, but for now we're going to add a new navigation link. We don't want to make this too long because we don't want it to take up too much of our top link bar. So we're just going to call it Resources, but better yet, we should probably call it SharePoint Resources. And then click OK. Oops, I do see a typo, and that would be US. OK. And now you'll see we have a link here called SharePoint Resources. Okay, now that we've input that information, let's go ahead and go back to our Home tab to take us to the root, and you'll see that SharePoint Resources is available to us. So let's test it. And you'll see that it takes us to Microsoft SharePoint 2010 site. And you can't tell, there's been some customization, but not much, just the colors have changed, but this is also a SharePoint site.